So I'll just start with the land acknowledgement. I'm in Mi'kma'ki, the ancestral and unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq people. And today we're looking at equanimity and an open heart. So it's very much linked with our nervous system. When we're in fight, flight, and freeze, we don't have reliable access to our higher level brain development, but we also don't have very good access to our heart. Our hearts tend to shut down when we're in some kind of a threat response. And this disconnection, we all know what that feels like. And we also all know what it feels like to be overwhelmed. I see it in myself. I hear this from a lot over this last year and a half. Especially now, there seems to be a bit of a difference as we're coming out of this summer into the realities of the fall and the fourth wave and going back to schools and workplaces. And a lot of people are so sick of this pandemic and the restrictions. Of course, a lot of people know someone who's had it or might still be feeling the effects of it or who has lost someone to COVID. And we're just wanting it to be over. And so that's a lot of the decisions people are making around what happens now. And are we going into a nervous system response of fight, which is very difficult for people, or we're going into kind of an overwhelm? So let's just take a moment and notice that these are trauma responses that we're all dealing with either, well, all of us are dealing with this individually as well as the people that we're around. And then the wider culture. So feelings like it's just the end of my rope, I can't take it anymore. And one of the things that it's really clarified for us is that a lot of people are not acting from their best selves. So they might have a best self that's not really accessible to them right now, but we're not seeing that. And so when we look at people who are refusing to get vaccinated because they feel like it's a conspiracy from the government, or where they're going out and protesting against, at the doorways to hospitals, it's hard for us to understand the level of outrage and fear. And yet we have that as well. So we're all over the map on this. And one of the responses is we just want to be finished with it. We got nothing left to give. We feel really tapped out. And we just want to go home and live our own life. So that's some of the environment that we're looking at in terms of keeping an open heart. There's a lot going on that makes it difficult. So as we're just beginning this inquiry, notice where you are this moment in terms of the polyvagal system and the ladder. So one of the things we know is that it's really easy to go into collapse and feeling like it's hopeless. I can't do anything about what's going on. It's too many people. It's too overwhelming. And we know that we need to come out of that freeze response or that overwhelm through fight and flight. And when we're in fight, flight, or freeze, we don't feel open-hearted. One of the ways that we deal with that is that we feel disconnected. So just as a practice for a moment to take a couple of deep breaths, let your body relax. And we all know this state of ventral vagal, the state of trust and connected with ourselves, with other people. And we all know when we're in fight, flight, freeze too, we all move through these. So just to notice if you're able to settle your nervous system a little bit, come back to feeling your feet on the floor, your seat on the chair. Look around the room if you like for cues of safety. And right now we're doing an inquiry, a somatic, grounded mindfulness inquiry. And that's what we're doing right now. So this is a new book, Rock the Boat. It was published last August with Resmaa Menakem. And Rock the Boat, How to Use Conflict to Heal and Deepen Your Relationship, is a very interesting book. I think you'll see it over the next little while as well. I'll be using different parts of it. But the part I wanted to really focus in on today is something a little bit about clean pain and dirty pain, which we've worked with those concepts of his before. But I hadn't heard him talk about the brightened self. So there's this acceptance that we choose to accept the pain of growth instead of turning away from it. So clean pain is when we kind of step forward and we just go, okay, this is the situation. And I'm going to try and stay as present with it as I can and not judge myself if it's not perfect, for sure. But when we choose to really move in and really accept that life is hard right now, it's painful, growth is hard, then something shifts in us. So he's talking about this shift as being neurobiological. So our whole body's energy realigns. One of the ways that we might see that is instead of that shame response or overwhelmed of the eyes are downcast, we're kind of slouched over, that we're more upright. Our eyes are engaged. There's an energy that we feel inside and other people can feel when they're in touch with us. We feel like we're present. What's going to happen from now on is not going to be what happened before. So this is important in part because of the experiences that we've had of it not being safe to really be authentic and to be grounded and strong and resilient. So now what we're doing is stepping into our strength and resilience. And this sentence here, suddenly we know deep in our body who we are, what we feel, what we stand for, and often what we need to do. Suddenly we know deep in our body who we are, what we feel, what we stand for, and often what we need to do. Notice your body and your breath, and notice your response to those words. And we'll come back to this again. I will not continue to harden my heart. So this is an interesting statement. It really acknowledges that we do harden our hearts, that we all feel overwhelmed and we all go into fight, flight, freeze. It might be a predominant experience that we harden our heart. It might be something that only happens when we're feeling really overwhelmed, but we all know that experience. So Resma's talking about this, the brightening of self is an act of health, sanity, and courage, and spiritual transformation. We step up and face the situation, which is clean pain, or we fold and shrink away. We either grow up or we flee. And man, is it ever hard to be an adult these days, especially when our own nervous systems are maybe emotionally flooded. We all have such personal experiences right now that are very difficult. We step up, we grow up, or we flee. So this literal and metaphorical straightening of the spine feels so true in my body. And maybe that's your response too, as you're looking at the brightening of self always involves both of a literal and a metaphorical straightening of the spine. Brightening isn't willed or planned or created. It happens when we make an internal commitment to growing up. And I'm in my late 60s, and I still feel like I'm growing up more and more every year. Let's sit with that for a minute. What do those words bring as a response in your own body, your own thoughts, your emotions? And if you're going into any kind of shaming, see if you can resist that. Come back up, bring up your eyes, look around. Growing up and facing a situation isn't about shaming ourselves for not being more grown up earlier. It's not about that at all. It's an internal commitment we make, and we make it again and again and again. And we have to do this with kindness, or it really doesn't work at all. I will not continue to harden my heart. Really feel into your body, your breath, your heart. So let's move to doing a practice of open heartedness. Rest your attention in your heart center. And then bring to mind somebody where you naturally feel love and compassion, joy, connection. It could be an experience you're remembering, it could be a person, an animal. And as you breathe in and you're in touch with your heart center, you could have your hands on your heart too if you want. Breathe in and let that feeling radiate through your whole body. Just like that warm golden glow of light in our heart center. As we breathe it in, we can just really feel that spreading out and lightening up the whole area. And then as we breathe out, each time we breathe out, we have another opportunity to relax, to let ourselves soften. So we'll do this for a minute or so, several long breaths. Just breathe in the feeling of love and connection, compassion, joy. Let it radiate through your whole heart, your whole body, and then breathe out, let yourself soften and relax. And now bring to mind a situation where you feel strong and steady, where you feel resilient. So we all have those as well. So bring up a memory or a visualization. And as you're doing that, breathe it in. Feel the strength and resilience in your whole body. You might imagine or see your body as you're standing strong. Your feet are planted, your shoulders are relaxed, you're breathing. And as you breathe in, feel it in your whole body. Just vividly imagine it using all of your senses. Strong, steady, resilient. And this is when we know I can handle my life. I can stay present with an open heart. I'm tough, not in the sense of closed down or in fight, flight, freeze. I'm tough in a sense of strong, resilient, I'm present, I'm open hearted. I can do this. I can handle my life. And again, several deep breaths. Let that permeate through your whole body. And notice if there are thoughts coming in that are kind of arguing a little bit. Well, you're not always strong. Sometimes you're lying on the couch with a book or Netflix or ice cream or something. So, right now, we're not really looking at that. If you have that come in, that's fine. We could maybe practice a bit of kindness, compassion. It's not anywhere near reasonable to expect that we're always going to feel a certain way. We're not always going to feel strong and resilient. We're just not. And we also know that we don't need to go with that kind of internal shaming. I can handle my life. I can stay present with an open heart. And that includes a lot of variety. I've made this commitment to staying, to growing up, to being present. And when your mind brings up examples of things that feel overwhelming or difficult, let them be there just to notice these are some of the difficulties that I'm facing right now. And they might be really hard. That's true for many of us. And notice if you can stay. Stay in kindness for yourself. Be patient. We might be in a fight response. It shouldn't be this way. I shouldn't have to put up with this. And then to regulate back into a calmer state. Really keeping your attention in your heart center. Looking at the thoughts as they come through, but staying grounded in your body. We know this experience about freedom. Freedom is possible through deeply accepting everything that's here, flowing through each moment. And then we work with what gets in the way of that. Of course, we don't accept everything that's here, not all the time anyway. And we've also all experienced the freedom of not wanting something to be different in the moment. It might not happen as much as a resistance, but we all know that feeling too. So the rest of these sentences are affirmations in a way, inquiries. It could be reverse inquiries where we look at, I release myself and others to be who we are authentically. And then we're like, no, I don't know about that. So let's just work with these. I'll drop the words in so you can have your eyes closed if you want. It will take several minutes to really work with our response. And you could just work with one of them if you like. Let the others move to the background so you can really take your time. Or you could do them in sequence. I welcome and empathetically connect with everything inside of me. I can handle who I am. And part of this means that we don't shame ourselves. We don't expect ourselves to be perfect. We don't suppress anything or push anything to the side. We can really handle knowing who we are with some sense of welcoming and connection. And part of this is that I can be authentic. So the next reflection, I release myself and others to be who we are authentically. And this is another very deep practice. So whether we're working with that internally, there's a lot of shaming that we do internally. And when we're working with it with other people, some of that is to really deeply accept that everybody is working on their own nervous system, their own resistance, their own life. And nobody really owes us more than what they're able to give us. And that can be very painful because a lot of the time we really need somebody to be able to support us, or we really need the connection we have with that person, and we really are in trouble when it's gone or when it's limited. So again, can we stay with the truth? That commitment to be clear and steady and grown up. I release myself and others to be who we are authentically. And that's actually pretty wonderful. It might not suit us, it might trigger some defense mechanisms. And it's also wonderful. Again, staying connected with your body, your breath, your responses to that, both in thoughts and energy. And it's really okay to want things to be different than they are. It's okay to have needs, to be frustrated when they're not met. It's part of being human. And as you're breathing and noticing your body, let your body be relaxed. So these kinds of things tend to bring up contraction and tension in our body. Or we might get carried off into a train of thoughts about something in the past or a worry about the future. And we just keep coming back. And then if you wanted your hand on your heart, one or both hands on your heart for the next one. I love all of myself, especially the hurt part, the parts that were alone and suffering and who felt like no one cared. And that's a devastating experience for a child. And many of us have carried that into our adult lives, of course. And that's part of what we're healing now is we disconnect from those parts that feel so alone. And now we're really moving in and stepping forward. I love all of myself, especially those parts that are hurting. It felt like no one cared. And with our adult self, we can offer comfort to those parts that are more vulnerable, that feel alone. And it might be words, it might be energetic, it might just be a commitment to staying present. Continue to notice your body, your breath. I include and accept myself unconditionally with kindness, compassion, and deep love. And if that doesn't feel 100% true, you might be working with things that are coming up that make it feel not true. Or maybe you could just kind of settle into that as an aspiration. I really do want to, and I know that it's right. I could unconditionally accept myself. I'm not a bad person. I could open my heart to my own self. And then we feel into that. What would that feel like? I include and accept myself unconditionally with kindness, compassion, and deep love. Notice your heart center. Notice your whole experience right now. And then in a moment, we're going to finish the practice, the inquiry. So reflect back over the last several minutes of the different reflections, the different inquiries. Just notice what really stands out for you. The strength and resilience, the kindness, the compassion, the things that hold us back, the things that help us to step in, step forward. Notice the highlights of the inquiry as you're really focusing in on your body and your breath as well. Notice the energy in your body. Be present to yourself.